Chris Catto-Smith. I'm a logistics development professional, and I've worked in Vietnam actually for more than 20 years in 2 or 3 different industries. And most recently I've been working in retail development. It's been an exciting time for me. Despite all my previous experience, I've learnt the most I've ever learnt in my profession, and I've had the most fun. And the reason I've had the most fun is that supply chain opportunities in Vietnam are just wonderful. And the experiences that I've had in the last several years have just been very rewarding, working with several companies, several innovative, open-minded industries that all they need is facilitation and even a catalyst to allow that innovative, highly professional characteristic of Vietnamese to go ahead and implement significant change in a very short time. Vietnam's a rapidly evolving economic power. Several reports that I've read recently is the projection of where Vietnam will be in the next 25 years. It'll be in the top 15 to 20 in the world as far as economic powerhouses are concerned. And it's building the right foundations that will enable it to become a power to be reckoned with. The thing that I've been absolutely encouraged in working with my Vietnamese colleagues is the efficiency, the work ethic, the concept of drive. They're very busy and time-sensitive professionals in this country that I've worked with. And all of those skills, the innovation, the drive to do things faster, smarter, quicker, have actually put also a lot of pressure on me to deliver the knowledge that I have in a way that accommodates the Vietnamese business style. Vietnam, initially, I would look at supply chain and logistics from a national point of view. And the period of time that I've worked here, I've seen development of road infrastructure from a time when bridges were quite dangerous to approach. The roads were not evenly made to allow vehicles to traverse between a road and a bridge. I've seen a lot of massive highway infrastructure development. I've seen improvements in vehicle regulations, particularly avoiding the old style of overloading vehicles and running everything at a very, very thin margin. We're seeing a lot more investment in multinationals investing in good modern trade and best logistics practices in their facilities. And there are also opportunities now with things like modern trade development in Vietnam, and it's interesting that a lot of the international modern trade retailers have not survived, but the regional modern trade logistics retailers are surviving, and the ones particularly in modern trade logistics, the ones that are most likely to dominate the market are Vietnamese in origin, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. Logistics enablement nationally has come a long way, and I think it's becoming exponential. There's a critical mass now in Vietnam of supply chain professionals, and I must compliment the Vietnam Supply Chain Organization for fostering a collaborative forum or a collaborative way of meeting supply chain professionals who all want one thing, to meet and understand the latest trends and opportunities for working together. And more importantly, a lot of the educational institutions are now investing in good logistics and supply chain programs that are training the next generation. The other thing that I've seen, particularly in the last 5 years, are organisations, quite large organisations, trusting small groups of very talented young professionals to make collaborative decision making together and taking on some quite challenging project work. My exposure in retail, 2 big retailers here in Vietnam, it's just been awesome to work with them. The capabilities, the way they keep old guys like me working hard to try and keep on creating value for them, or through education, knowledge transfer, and in some cases leadership or thought leadership. It's been fantastic in that respect. But Vietnam is approaching a very critical stage with the Asian Economic Community now already activated, and we've got to see a lot of non-tariff trade barriers removed before it becomes a true reality, but Vietnam's ready for that. The east-west northbound transportation corridors are opening up. There's a lot of trade routes now accessible with China. New markets are opening up for Vietnam in India, Singapore, Japan, Australia, as infrastructure and manufacturing and also agricultural capabilities are being developed in this country. Vietnam has become highly favourable to a range of manufacturers as a much more simple environment to move their manufacturing hubs into Vietnam. And what's happening with China now, it's not necessarily the cheapest or the lowest risk manufacturing environment, as a lot of the Western countries are finding out. It's become a trap to have their whole manufacturing portfolios based in China. That's Vietnam's now a highly attractive alternate. And for those that come in by air into the 2 international airports in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh, just need to look down and look at the massive amount of industrial land being actively populated with factories and distribution centres. Roads are being built, the rail lines are being upgraded. I had a fascinating talk with a major shipping company today who are looking at investing in roll-on, roll-off shipping capabilities for national coastal trade in Vietnam, which will be a fantastic opportunity. Multimodal freight opportunities, being able to mix rail and road transportation and coastal trade together will be a big opportunity. And the links with other countries now, particularly Thailand, Cambodia, the Mekong Delta, are becoming great, as Vietnam and Thailand, for example, look at moving into Cambodia and Laos and enabling those economies to also lift up with the access to manufacturing, value-add activities, and as a transportation routes, sharing a lot of trade opportunities and collaborative workloads. Consumer goods, high-tech industries are growing rapidly in Vietnam. Packaged frozen foods and also frozen fish or fish exports, all are giving Vietnam the opportunity to be a true global player. And it has lived under many decades of austerity and a lot of restrictions on development of infrastructure, and we're seeing anyone that visits Vietnam now will see rapid change. Main challenges that face Vietnam that I see now are transportation costs. Transportation costs are much higher as a percentage of total logistic costs than many of its neighbours. Up to 70 to 80% of overall logistic costs are transport related. Fuel is being one, and opportunities to take out energy from the transportation leg is a big opportunity in Vietnam, particularly in cold chain. The other opportunities that Vietnam offer new investors, that currently logistics as a percentage of GDP is running about 23%. competing nations around in the ASEAN region, for example, their total logistics spend as a percentage of GDP is about 13%. So anything that Vietnam logistics enablement and supply chain development can do to reduce that percentage will make Vietnam more competitive as both a regional and international player. The other fantastic thing that's happening in Vietnam, as I said before, is the skills development. Universities are developing student leaders of the future. A lot of the large multinationals are enabling very young, talented professionals to take major decisions and projects together. And just today I was looking at discussing case opportunities of even jumping out of traditional Western logistics methods and doing stuff Vietnamese style. And that's, for example, being able to deliver cold chain products in ambient vehicles to retailers through the use of very low cost cold chain practices. It's an opportunity that we were just discussing today. The other opportunity in Vietnam is to improve the environmental impact of its packaging. A lot of manufacturers and agricultural providers don't consider the impact of using polystyrene. It's a curse, particularly for the damage it does to the environment in non-recyclability, and also the waste associated with single-use, environmentally unfriendly packaging. Polystyrene is an absolute curse. And there are alternates to that now, which some of the retailers are using reusable, returnable, environmentally friendly packaging, which is also a major cost contributor. Other opportunity in Vietnam for the future is supply chain cost modeling. And there are some very innovative young consulting companies that are developing the tools necessary to optimize multivariate supply chain issues such as inventory levels, transport cost, network location decisions, how to integrate distributors with the manufacturer's supply chain model to optimize cost, how to work with a retailer to actually share logistic channels to markets according to who is best able to do those. That's all now. The tools are being developed in Vietnam to solve those solutions. Investment in people, I'll keep talking about this. The skills foundation is certainly being laid. The Vietnam Supply Chain Organization offer training for young people, opportunities to network, and also it's an informal way of career opportunities for young people to choose logistics and supply chain as a career path. The success stories that I've seen are the encouragement of the future leaders of the country, and they're the supply chain young professionals who will largely chart the course of Vietnam through to the mid-century as to one of the world's leaders. Areas that I've seen the most growth and most opportunity, and I've been closest to, is the retail supply chain development. And the explosive growth in Vietnam will be convenience store growth. And in probably 10 years' time, there won't be any sort of populated area in Vietnam that won't be less than probably 200 to 300 meters from a modern trade chain retailer. You can look at parallel stories. Vietnam and Thailand were very similar 15, 20 years ago, and virtually the critical mass of what's happened in Thailand, for example, is being achieved much quicker in Vietnam, and they'll overtake Thailand in 5 or 10, maybe 10 years' time as far as speed to market and solution development is concerned. There'll come a time where the nature of the innovative nature and the drive to do things fast and smarter and quicker and cheaper, the inbuilt drivers of the Vietnamese people will see that future achieved in a much quicker way than any of its neighbours. And as long as I can contribute, I'm going to do my very best and there'll become a time where I'm going to hand over to the future leaders and be very proud of them in what they can achieve. And I'll just keep coming back to Vietnam and see when that happens. I'll be a very, very proud man. Thank you.